Hello, I'm Natalie Gregg. I'm a divorce lawyer and I'm the host of your podcast, It's Complicated. This podcast is about complex divorce and child custody cases, slaying the dragons and taking on your ex in court, and keeping your most precious asset, your children, healthy throughout this process. Today, I have Amy Tyson with me. She is here to discuss helping families find happiness in the midst of heartache. She's a certified divorce coach and co-parenting coach and an author of this book. We have One Princess, Two Castles. And she's going to tell you all about her experience in the world of being an author, being an educator, and being a mom who's gone through all of these things in her own personal life. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Thank you for being here. So tell us, what inspired you to write this book?
Yeah, I get that a lot. So I'm one of those individuals, I've been divorced twice, and I never tell that to people so that they feel sorry for me or anything like that. Absolutely not. I simply choose to share that with you all so that you know I'm one of those individuals that's chosen to take what I've been through and use it to develop something that can help other people. When I was going through my first divorce, I was in my early to mid 30s. I had two little girls. I had been an educator, but was then a stay-at-home mom. And my main concern was how on earth I was going to tell my two little girls. And I just did not even know how to go about having that discussion. I didn't have a lot of friends that had walked that journey. And so I reached out to my local church, and the preschool minister loaned me a book and kind of said, you know, you go to a place you've never been to and you'll never go back to again, and kind of walked me through a discussion, you know, that you would have. And so I had my daughters and their father meet us at this park in this treed area. And among all things, I laid out a princess blanket for us to sit on. And as you know now, that's come full circle. But it was horrible. And I won't sugarcoat it. My youngest was 4.5 and my oldest was 7.5 at the time. And it was an awful experience. They hated the day. And obviously no child is going to enjoy that day, right? They feel like their world is falling apart and there's so many unknowns. But to make matters worse, I wasn't able to soften that blow, even though I had used the resource that I had been loaned. And I just remember feeling so sad that I wasn't able to fix it or to help make it better for my girls at that point.
And so what did your church give you? What was the resource that you had?
It was so long ago. I don't remember the name of it, and I wouldn't want to like throw another book under the bus. You know what I mean?
Sure. No, I mean, what did you not like about it, or what didn't speak to your kiddos?
They didn't like anything about it. It just I think. And I don't remember a lot about it because I was just at such an emotional day. I just remember they really, really hated it. And they were 4.5 and 7.5. So years later, I'm now walking through a second divorce. I've left the home. My older girls knew because they were older, but my youngest, who was 5, she didn't know. And I just wasn't even in a spot where I could tell her. I felt like a complete failure because here I am thinking, who goes through 2 divorces? And we know that's actually really common. But I was just in survival mode like so many.
Oh, sure.
And I remember I was in my room folding laundry. And in the middle of me folding laundry, all of a sudden a phrase pops into my head. And it's so clear. And the phrase was one princess, 2 castles. And I know for some people, they're like, okay, woman, that's just weird. And I remember thinking, this is so strange. I stopped doing laundry and I wrote it on a scrap of paper because nothing like that had ever happened before. And I put the scrap of paper in a silver box and I didn't do anything with it or think anything about it for months and months and months. And so finally, it's now time. I can't put off telling my youngest daughter anymore. I've got to face the reality of having this discussion. And there's double the pressure because now I have to look another daughter in the eyes and tell her dad and I are not going to stay together. And my older 2 daughters, who had been 4.5 and 7.5, one was about to enter high school. The other one was about to graduate high school. Still very much remembered the day I had told them. Still very much remembered the book all these years later. And I just remember thinking, wow, if a resource has that much power over a child this many years later, I've got to get it right. Again, looking for advice, for a resource, I turned to my youngest daughter's school counselor. And she did not have a book in her office. But she told me about one on Amazon. And so I ordered it. All the girls were away at school. And so I was now in an apartment, home alone. And I remember going into my bedroom and closing the door. Even though I was home alone, there was just this sense of I have to hone in and focus. And so I remember going and sitting on the carpet across from my nightstand, crisscross applesauce, as educators like to say. And here I am, I'm just staring at the title of this book, Natalie, and I was just put off. Is the only way I know how to describe it. And I thought, no, Amy, you've been recommended this resource and you've got to get it right this time. So I start to read through the book and I just shut it. I thought this is not the way to go about it, or at least not the way I wanted to tell my little girl. And at that point in time, I wasn't thinking about the potential of millions of other children that would walk this journey. I was thinking about my little girl. And I got up and I threw it in the trash. And I walked over to my desk and wrote what now so many family law firms, just like yours, carry for their clients, which is One Princess, Two Castles. Which when I wrote it, I wanted a way, number one, it doesn't use the word divorce, as you know, and that's for two reasons. Number one, I think the word divorce, is much too strong of a word for a young child. And my daughter at this point was in kindergarten. And then when I went to publish it, I still didn't put the word divorce in for reason number one. But also reason number two, I thought I'm on a mission to help as many families as I can. And we know there's lots of families, they're not legally married. And although I didn't walk that journey, I don't doubt for 1 second that that pain doesn't affect those children and those parents just as much as it does if somebody, is legally married wearing a ring on their finger.
100%.
And so I thought I really want to help all these families. And then I wanted a way to give my daughter and children everywhere permission for their little hearts to hurt, because no matter what you do, their hearts are going to hurt. But, and this is what's so important, I wanted to help these children to have an unapologetic permission to feel very excited about spending time with both parents, regardless of what was going on behind the scenes. And so I also wanted to give them a phrase they can focus on, which is things will be different, but things will be good. I'm a huge believer in mindset, and even in those darkest of times, something good can come from that if you're conscious about looking for that. And that goes for both children and parents. So where you live is likely going to change. Where you go to school, or if you're having to go back to work or changing your job role. I mean, things can change, but different doesn't have to mean bad.
So this is a silver linings to the rough time that you're about to go through with your family.
Right. It's expressing the emotions in a divorce, not so much the mechanics behind it. And it helps people to have that conversation with their children, because it's hard to have that conversation, even if you're a very seasoned communicator. So it's truly designed, as you know, when family law firms carry it the minute a client retains you for a SAPS or divorce or modification, because we know things are changing, whether it's child support, visitation, what have you, that it's an automatic trigger for if the client has children ages 4 to 10, 11, boy or girl, that you automatically hand over a copy of One Princess, Two Castles.
And our clients have loved it. We've gotten rave reviews, and they've really thanked us because we didn't have a resource like this. Mm-hmm. One thing that some clients have asked is, are you going to write one for boys?
Oh my goodness. So I am actually in the works of that right now.
Okay.
And so the title was put on my heart it was a week ago Sunday. And so I think people will love it. It's, you have to gather the money to, get it published and illustrated. And I want a really excellent product. But in the past, I've always said at some point, yes, I'd love to do that. And I am currently working on that right now.
Perfect.
Yes.
And so you brought with you today a new book that I'm super excited about. And I want you to explain, number one, it's called Little Hearts, Big Feelings. And how your background helped you develop this, and then also how we're supposed to use it. Because we went to law school, us lawyers, and guys, I don't know about you, but I don't have a PhD. I have a lot of knowledge about all of the disorders through all of our experts, but I would love to be able to help our clients put words and feelings exactly like you have shown me in this journal. So can you explain it?
Oh my goodness, yes. And I'm so excited about it. So this is fairly new and it's catching on really quickly. So as a former educator, I can tell you that I really do believe children are more readily able to express their emotions through drawings versus written text, and especially verbal text. Think about it as adults, right? It can be really hard as an adult to express your emotion. So you take a child, and this is targeted for children ages 4 all the way to 15. So you take a child or a teenager, A, they're not fully developed, right? But B, oftentimes they're carrying the burden of their parents' pain, whether that person is saying things to them directly, whether it's in earshot, or whether they're picking up on body language or facial expressions, or they're seeing a text. And then they don't feel like they can come to their parent because they see how upset they are, right? And so here this child is, they're burdened with this. And their parents don't know how they're feeling, therefore they can't help them the way they need to. And as a former educator, I taught kindergarten for the past couple of years, and I can tell you, I remember I had this precious little girl come in falling to pieces one day. And I said, "What is wrong?" And she said, "I'm going to my daddy's today, but I can't stay very long because my mommy said she'll miss me." And I mean, she would cry all the time in class, you know, and I think in this situation, at least, I don't think the mom really knew what she was saying wasn't healthy, right? The mom was in pain. And so my goal through this is A, it's going to give these children a platform to express their emotions. And then at the beginning of the journal, it's real bubblegum. It's all about the child. Like, what is your favorite thing to have for breakfast? Draw a picture of your favorite snack. Draw a picture of your best friend. So they're not really getting into their emotions, but it's a two-part thing, because as it's warming the child up, later when the parent looks at it with their attorney, it's also helping that parent to get to know their child, because we know, right? A lot of times in a marriage, one parent is not as involved, maybe because their career kept them busy so much, maybe emotionally they just were not in a place they could be as present as they needed to be. And chances are they're going to start having that child on their own, and they need to know the likes and dislikes and all these things about their child, right?
Sure.
Well, then the journal starts to warm up and it says, draw a picture of your family. Well, when you look at that picture, and I'm going to get into how you guys explain all of this to your client, but when you as the family law attorney are looking at this, what does that picture look like of their family? Are both parents holding the child's hand? Is one parent off in the distance? And every page, it'll have like a bubble phrase, and then it'll have where they draw. Okay. And so are both parents in the picture? Is one closer to the child than the other? Is something written in speech bubbles? Are there tears? Is somebody else added into that picture that you guys knew nothing about? And that happens, right?
A boyfriend or
Yes. And so how are we going to help this child? And we need the facts that we can get, right? What I love about my family, and they're going to draw 4 things that they love about their family. And then it's going to get into both the mom and the dad. So anywhere it talks about the mom, it's also going to have pages for the dad. My mom, what does that picture look like of the mom? Is she holding something in her hand that is maybe not real healthy? I mean, but that's just the truth, right? And then draw a picture of you and your mom. Again, what does that picture look like? Is the child sitting on the floor in tears and mom's at the computer? Is mom sitting with her boyfriend and child's off to the side? Or is, the child sitting in the mom's lap and they're reading a book together? And again, it's going to have the same page for the dad. And it'll have things like, draw a picture of 4 things you like to do with your mom. Draw 4 things you wish you could do with your mom. And it goes through all these different things. Draw 4 things that make you feel afraid. And for families that are still intact, their child might draw, I'm afraid of the dark, or I'm afraid of the thunderstorm. But a child in the midst of divorce or a modification may draw things that are very different than they're afraid of, that you guys really need to be aware of. But then on the corresponding page, it's helping the child come up with strategies to not feel afraid. And so it will say, draw 4 things that can help you to not feel afraid. So maybe some things the child can do, or maybe some things they wish their parents would do differently. And then it'll talk about, things they like to do with each parent. And I think too, that will be an eye opener to the parents, because the parent may be a horrible spouse.
Right.
But they can still be an excellent parent. I mean, that's just the truth of the matter. And
we say that to our clients all the time. You can hate your spouse, but you have to love your children more.
Absolutely. Or they could have been a checked out parent, but now they're ready to make that change. And I think through these pictures that hopefully, let's say mom's looking at what the child is drawing that she likes to do with her dad, and maybe it settles in on her mind. I really can't stand him, but I know my child loves him.
So do you envision this book staying with the child? And you said, so the gatekeeper is the attorney. So I would give this to my client and we would talk about how to use it and your boundaries that you described earlier. And then we give this to the kiddo. And then does this go between the households, or do you think that each parent should have their own at their household?
That is a great question. So the design is, again, if a client retains you for modification, SAPSR, or divorce, is that you say, if it's a 4 to 15-year-old child, boy or girl, you say, listen, it can be really hard for us as adults to communicate our feelings. I'm going to provide you with a resource for your child to communicate their feelings. So when they go to bed at night, you're going to put them to bed 15 to 20 minutes early. Okay, every single night you're going to have markers, crayons, colored pencils out on their nightstand. If they're not of reading age, you're going to read them the prompt. Otherwise, they'll read it themselves. And you're going to say, listen, I want you to draw your feelings out on this page. I'm going to go do the dishes, or I'm going to go exercise. Whatever, you're going to walk out of that room and you're going to leave them alone. Then when that time is over, you're going to come back and say, all right, it's time to go to bed. And you're going to take that journal and you're going to put it in their nightstand or on their bookshelf. You are not going to open it. You are not going to look at it in front of the child. And occasionally when we meet, you are going to bring that journal back and we are going to look through this journal together, because it could very well change the way you navigate a case.
Absolutely.
And the parent is never to discuss what they see in this journal with the child. This is only for them to have the head and the heart knowledge. And if both parents want their child to work on it, they need to have 2 separate journals.
And do you have these rules written down anywhere, or are they on your website, or is this something when you give the book, it's a training for the attorney?
I always got to instruct you all on how to use it. It is a great idea. I might need to put that on my website. But what I want to just really hone in on is these parents are not to talk about this with their kids, because they need a safe space. And it can't be, well, why didn't you draw this? Or why do you like to do this with your dad? I'm better at this, or I do this too. No. These children have got to be able to express their emotions, and they're going to learn from this, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, and they can also bring, I think it would be very useful for this to be a tool for a child therapist to say, with permission. So one of the caveats to your rule is maybe get permission to hand this to the therapist, and so they can look through it and say, wow, oh, you're afraid of transitions? Like the car is scary. Why is that scary? Mm-hmm. And because it means I'm leaving, because we get a lot of parents who come in and they say, they don't want to go. Well, it's not that they don't want to go. Kids don't like change. Mm-hmm. And what you were talking about, some parents step to the plate, right? So maybe they weren't always present because they were earning the money. But I find that people, if they want to, they can flourish. And so I think this tool would be so amazing to give to my clients, and then also to share with therapists. So can you tell us what does it lead up to at the end?
So at the very end, because I really do want these children to embrace living in 2 homes, because the reality is, it's very common, right, that not every child is going to grow up in one home all their lives. And I want them to feel loved. And so at the very end, it says, draw 4 good things about living in 2 homes. And then it says in bubble letters, 2 homes and 2 parents that love you.
I love that. So in addition to all of this work you've been doing on books, and you're also a blogger, could you tell us, what is a certified divorce coach?
Sure. So I am so excited about this. I got certified in December, and I did coursework August through December, twice a week for hours at night, lots of reading. And then every other week we had also other things that we did. And so now I don't just have the heart knowledge, but I have the book knowledge, right? And I think they're equally important, but I think it's so good to have both. And so I'm trying to get the word out as to what a divorce coach is. I didn't just say I was a divorce coach. I did take the courses. And so I never give somebody legal advice. That is not my lane. That's your lane, and I don't want it. I don't diagnose anyone like a therapist. So I am simply number one, my goal is to help individuals to end one chapter with grace and the next chapter with confidence. So that is huge to me. And if they have children, helping them to co-parent well, because it's not that you guys don't want to do the emotional hand-holding. A lot of times you don't have time. And
Absolutely.
You need your clients to be credible and organized when they come in for these meetings and in their emails, and for sure when they get on the stand in court, right?
So could you give the clients some examples of what a certified divorce coach does, and the behind the scenes?
Absolutely. So the first time I meet with a client, we kind of see where they're at and what they're going through. And then I explain to them, my job is to help you to get unstuck off that story of divorce, because it is not going to be beneficial for them if they are coming in constantly playing the record over and over again. This isn't fair. They cheated. I shouldn't have to work, all the things, right? Because that's not going to help them move on to the business of divorce. And that is necessary so that they can move on more quickly and in a healthy way, right? And then what I do is at each session, we'll talk about things that are going on, and then we will explore different paths. If they were to take this path, what we think that would look like, and we walk it out. For example, too, like maybe they just got an email from their spouse and they are fuming. And we try to walk out, okay, what do you think was going through his or her mind when they sent that? And let's kind of role play. Or maybe it's mediation and the other parent is wanting this much custody or is wanting these items. Okay, let's think about what is going through that other person's head, even if you hate them. Why do you think they want those things? And we just walk different journeys and we'll role play, not just a message or a conversation that they may have, but they will role play being the other parent or the other party in the
And that's so useful.
situation.
So do you also come to court when clients say, I'm really worried about this, I don't know what I'm going to do? And I know we have, the lawyers are like, oh, we got this. Here's our briefcase. We're ready to go. Get on the stand. And we already went over the questions. I mean, I do definitely, because I've been divorced, and I understand how anxiety ridden and just you don't feel like yourself, but I think having someone in your role, do you go to court and do you sit there and let them know, oh, it's going to be okay, you're safe?
I love that you brought that up. And so here's the deal. I remember when I was going through my first divorce back in 2008 and going in the court building in Tarrant County and walking into that courtroom, and it seemed so big. And I was just in it last week meeting with a judge, and I was like, this doesn't look big at all, right?
Yeah.
And so absolutely. So if a client, one of your clients wants me to come and sit in the back of the courtroom, I don't even have to talk to him. I think sometimes just for the moral support of knowing she's back there, or if there's a recess and they need somebody to just chat with and, really walk down, okay, if this happens, this is what this could look like, and just calming the waters, right? Because stress affects you in so many ways. So if you can really help with that overwhelm, which I feel like I can, it can make such a difference as they're on the stand and when that ruling comes down.
And also when there's communication, so attorney-client, we call it team communication if we have a divorce coach involved. So we have a confidentiality agreement. Do you have one of those?
Well, so I make it clear to them, everything that they say to me is confidential, except for if they want their family law attorney to be in on that conversation, then that is absolutely fine with me, but they would have to give me that permission. But just know in anything, you can get subpoenaed. And so if I'm subpoenaed, then I have to discuss what I'm asked.
And so it's important that when you're acting as a divorce coach, that the client doesn't reveal strategy, so that you would be subpoenaed to maybe reveal that if that was something that happened. But it sounds like you're focused on the heart and we're focused on the strategy. And I think that sounds like a really great team. So you also do some co-parenting coaching. Can you explain what that is to our viewers?
Yes. So I had somebody recently ask me if I would be able to do this. And the answer is 1000%. And I actually would prefer that if I can get both parents' hearts together at the same time, how awesome that would be. And so basically the way that would work is I can do a couple of different scenarios. If mom and dad are coming, I could do an hour with mom. Then I could do an hour with both parents, dad at the end. And then the next session, we flip-flop. So dad gets to have the first hour. Then they come together for the second hour. And the third hour, then the mom gets to have the final say. Because I think, it could be like, well, he's always getting the final, say, or she's always getting to start. And I don't ever want people to feel that way. So absolutely, I can definitely coach both parents together.
Well, and I think it's a good point. I think you have to look neutral, right? And you have to be neutral. And this isn't about advocating, right? Your role is to help and that families heal during the process, which almost seems like an insurmountable task. But with all these tools, you can do it in such a healthier way.
Yes. And I get the question too, okay, will you coach men? And I'm like 1000%, because I think sometimes people think, oh, well, maybe I would only coach women because I'm a woman. And I'm like, I'm a mom. And I can tell you, like, the dad is just as important as the mom. And so absolutely, I will coach men. And the reality is sometimes men have a lot more of a difficult time, expressing their emotion. And maybe if it's a little girl, sometimes it's harder for them to know exactly how to parent a little girl. That's not always the case, but it is sometimes. And so I very much will coach men just as much as women.
Well, and I think some of our male clients, I have a lot of male clients and dads who want to be primary or 50-50 dads, not just one cookie cutter mold. And they genuinely come and they say, you know what, I know I've been working a lot. I've been a consultant. My travel schedule was 90%. And I'm committing to my family. So I'm moving back, here, and I'm going to do a remote job. And they really want to do it, but they just don't have the tools.
Right. That just gives me goosebumps, that somebody, man or woman, right, is willing to change their work schedule for their child, and they really want to step up to the plate. And it's not that these men who have been, so busy can't do it and can't do an awesome job parenting and spending tons of time with their child. They just need that guidance, right?
Well, and what I explain to my clients is we have to pivot, right? We're in a new spot. You're in your marriage, we can divide and conquer. So you do the bills and I do, the cooking and cleaning or whatever it is in your household. We divide and conquer. But then once you're on your own, we're 24/7 parents.
Oh, yeah, you are.
All of a sudden on steroids, and then everyone's just kind of like, where's the script? So what am I supposed to be doing here? Especially when they're trying to also monitor and kind of hide their feelings of true sadness and mourning when they're this huge loss of the relationship and the family.
And it's so important to process that and come up with quality things to do with your child, not just we're going to go here, we're going to go there. And I can help them with that.
Well, I loved what you said before when we were chatting, and you said the way to kids' hearts and the way to bond with them is not through buying them things. The Disneyland dad or mom is not the solution. It's time.
Absolutely. They're more interested in, are you sitting with them and hearing about their day? Are you making fun cookies with them? Are you going to sit on the floor and play a game with them? Those are the things that really matter. Trips are fun. My children love them. I love them. But that's not your everyday life, right? And when your children grow up and they look back on their best memories, those are going to be great. But the best memory they're going to have is that mom or dad was here for me and they worked together.
And the working together component, sometimes we have to put our egos aside.
Oh, absolutely. Like, I'm a huge proponent of, if you figured out how to have a child with this other person, you better figure out how to parent with them, barring any safety concerns. I do understand 100%. There are situations where there's safety concerns. But, so much of the time it's monkey see, monkey do. And it is time to change it for these children and the generations to come. And it doesn't mean you have to be their best friend, but sometimes you have to fake it till you make it. Today's a daddy day, always go on a Thursday, and amp it up for them. Put a cute note in their lunch. And when they call or when they come home, be excited for them to share about those times. And it'll tear down those walls over time. It really will.
I always say you're going to get an Academy Award in doing this role. If you're not feeling it, you just gotta. So I love that idea of putting a note in your lunch. Another thing, we say is it's all about marketing. So if I say, we're going to go to Disney World. I mean, Disney World's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
But my tone was not there.
Right.
And so you could say, we're going to go to the bus stop.
Uh-huh.
And that just sounded like, sign me up. Let's go right now.
That's right. Yeah. And kids pick up on that no matter how old they are. Little ones pick up on that. And so you want them to feel comfortable. You don't want them to go to the other house and be worried about you. I mean, that can cause so much damage. And I just really want people to understand that even a difficult divorce does not have to result in years of difficult co-parenting. It's going to take work. I mean, even in a marriage, two people don't always agree on the discipline and how to raise the child. So if you're divorced, you're probably really not going to. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't mean that you can't come together and it go really smooth with lots of work.
Absolutely. So I really appreciate you bringing in these tools, Little Hearts, Big Feelings, and One Princess, Two Castles. Can you tell us how we can get these?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, law firms such as yours that carry One Princess, Two Castles and Little Hearts, Big Feelings. So the minute they retain an attorney over there, they can ask, okay, do you carry One Princess, Two Castles and Little Hearts, Big Feelings if the attorney just, got busy and forgot to hand it over. If their attorney does not, they can go to my website, which is happinessintheheartache.com, and they can order copies on there. Yes. And Perfect. If they have more than one child, obviously one book is good, but more than one journal.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
So looking forward to using this in my practice.
Yay. I can't wait to hear feedback.